This video is for the U substitution exercise worksheet. Alrighty, let's take a look at our exercises here. So pick the right U. Remember, pick, okay, let's see. Where does it go? Review and start inking. There we go. Now I'm learning. Okay, so start by picking the U. In this case, we want to pick the inside. And take the derivative. Rewrite it so that the everything with the T is on the right and everything with the U is on the left. Now when you get to this point, you have a choice to make with the coefficients. So you might automatically go to the next step, like I was showing you some in class, and just divide there, or you might compare what you have with the original. So do you see a 6 coefficient in the original function? Yes, you do. So we don't have to do the divide by in this case. That's a choice that you can make. So I'm going to go here, and I've got the inside. There's my U to a power. And then what's going on there? And then down at the bottom, I've got my 6 and my dt, and that's what I'm replacing. So I replace the 6 and the dt with the du. Now you might have had a 6 coefficient divided by a 6 coefficient, and you know that 6 divided by 6 equals 1. Do the antiderivative, plus the k, substitute back in, like that. And like the instructions say, it's a good idea to double check by taking the derivative. And I probably want to take the derivative correctly with respect to t, since I don't have an x there. Fifth divided by 5 plus k, like that. So chain rule, power rule, 5 goes in front, inside stays the same, subtract 1, still divided by that 5, derivative of a constant is 0, and derivative of the inside. The 5's cancel out, and we have the original thing we started with. Like that. I highly recommend you do that. I always do it in class, and the whole reason that I'm redoing this video, you don't know, but it's because I screwed it up the first time. I didn't double check. Anyways, next one. So there are several choices here. Some of you talked about this in class. So the U, remember one of the choices is pick the exponent of the exponential. So I gave you slight variations in class, but that's, you always have to choose something at the beginning. So choose that exponent. Take that derivative. Move everything with a p to the right. And then compare. So so let's go ahead and do part of that substitution. I've got that exponential, and I've got e to the u. So now I need to deal with the dp and the 4 minus 12p. So on my du line, I've got 2 minus 6p. So there's a couple of choices. You can factor out the 2 at the beginning, or we can multiply by 2 here. It doesn't make any difference. It's just a coefficient. But when you get to the du line, the only thing that you should think about is how do I multiply or divide by a coefficient so that I can manipulate it and get that original thing that I've got there. So finally I can make that substitution there. And remember, you're either going to have, like that previous example, u to a power, or like this example, e to the u. If you have anything else, you've made a mistake. You get there and double check it. If you do this double checking every single time, chances are you're going to get it right. And when the points matter on the test, you're going to have that built in. And you always finish early, so why not do this a little extra step? Who knows, if you do this, there might be extra partial credit. I don't know. That's why I'm whispering. Don't tell anybody. All right, so take the derivative. So the 2 is a coefficient. E stays the same times the derivative of the exponent plus k. Derivative is always 0. So now multiply by the 2. And you got it. Next example. All righty. So just a reminder, how do you know when to use U substitution? If you're taking the derivative of this, and it would be a product rule or a quotient rule or a chain rule. Now this is definitely 2 things multiplied, so that's a clue. Let's pick something for the U. So the inside, there's no exponential, there's no denominator, so definitely an inside part. So inside that square root. And here I'm going to pause because at this point I can compare it to my original, and I know that the 3 and the 9 have a factor in common. So this is where you can make a choice. You can divide by the 9, or we can look at where are we? We can look at just what's in the original. So I've got 3x squared in the original. So if I factor out a 3, then I can do this. But this is a choice. So if you just want to deal with the divide by 9, that's fine. Okay, so now I've got the 3x squared. That's all there. And I've got my u. So I'll have the square root of u, and then 3x squared dx gets replaced like that. And I wrote it differently than I've done before. Don't panic, because I am immediately going to put that coefficient out front. At the same time I change that square root to that power. So you can leave it as a giant divide by 3 or a 1/3 out front. It's all the same thing. So the only extra thing you have to do here is plug in the x part for the u, but let's look at simplifying just a little bit. So this is 1/3 times, and it's a divided by 3/2. So when you divide by a fraction, you flip it over and multiply. And I'm going to go ahead and put the x here while I'm simplifying that. The simplify is just important for when you go back to Excel. But just to illustrate where the 2/9 comes from a little better. Oops, I forgot a parentheses. Where does it go? After the 5, before the exponent. There we go. So let's do our double checking here and make sure that we got it right, because we don't want to be wrong. Okay, so the 2/9 is the coefficient. The exponent goes in front. Inside stays the same. Subtract 1 from the exponent. And derivative of the inside. So another 3 stays there. 3 goes in front. Subtract 1 from the exponent. And you're done. So what do we've got? The 2's cancel. I've got a 3 times 3 at the end, cancels the 9. So I'll have a 3 and an x squared and my square root, which is what we wanted. Let's take a look at the last one, which is where I had originally made a mistake and I didn't double check it. And I'll illustrate the mistake here. I won't make the same mistake, but I'll show you what I did and how I should have noticed it. So pick the u. So denominator and the inside. So the inside in this case kind of overrules the denominator because we want to end up with u to a power. So if I choose the entire denominator with the cube, then I'm not going to have u to a power. You should never end up with u to the first power, just FYI. I probably should put that on the tip sheet. Like that. Okay, so we go over here and make our substitution. So my denominator is the u, and this is where my original mistake was. I didn't put the cube here. So I wound up with u to the -1 in a natural log. And had I done the double checking step, I probably would have noticed that I had forgotten the cube. So I highly recommend doing that double checking. So my u is in the denominator cubed, and then everything else gets replaced with the du. I don't need parentheses, but that's okay. Remember, you're going to end up with u to some power. -2 plus k, and there we go. So let's double check this. Let's go through and do what our teacher has told us to do and double check it every single time. So the exponent goes in front, subtract 1 from the exponent, that divide by -2 is still a coefficient, derivative of the k goes away, and not equals yet because we've got the chain rule, all these extra marks. So the derivative outside we did, and the inside like that. And now we can simplify it or don't. You obviously know that that's the right answer, or it is obviously the right, whichever way you want to phrase it. -3, like that. Not a -3. I was looking at that going, there's still something funny. See, I can't get it right no matter what. Now it's correct. There we go. So I do highly recommend that you always double check that, because everybody makes little mistakes. And maybe that double checking will help alert you to something. All righty.